Dealerships have historically been an integral part of the car buying process, and in this process, car dealerships have easily become the most hated part of the automotive industry. Dealing with slimy salesmen, convoluted paperwork, junk fees, and a day's worth of your time. I think I can speak for all of us whenever I say that dealerships are truly the worst. Dealerships hold a lot of power, and truthfully, whether we like it or not, or whether automakers like it or not, dealerships probably aren't going anywhere anytime soon. And so in today's video, I'm going to be talking about why dealerships have so much power, why they probably aren't going anywhere anytime soon, though they could end up changing in the future, and I'm also going to be talking about what benefit dealerships have to us as the consumer, albeit it's a small one. Now, I have been a very outspoken critic of dealerships and car salesmen, and that's coming from somebody who is married to an ex-car salesman. In fact, I even hated dealerships and car salesmen whenever my husband HP was actively selling cars. And whenever it comes to why I am so anti-car dealership and anti-car salesman, it really comes down to predatory sales tactics and a lack of financial education that comes along with buying a car. A car is the second largest purchase that a person will make in their life, and statistically, as prices of cars have gone up, this second purchase of a car is becoming a larger and larger one. But when we compare the purchase of a car to the purchase of a house, which is the largest purchase a person will make, the buying process is quite a bit different. The biggest difference comes in the form of representation, more often than not in the form of a real estate agent. Now, real estate agents and the home buying process are far from perfect, but whenever you're going through the process of buying a home, there's a sense of comfort in knowing that somebody that's educated within this field is on your side helping you navigate the home buying process. In fact, one of the biggest benefits of the home buying process versus the car buying process is the presence of a fiduciary, which typically comes in the form of a real estate agent whenever you're buying homes. But a fiduciary is somebody that has a moral and legal obligation to have your best interest in mind. And it can come in the form of a real estate agent, but also in the form of a lending agent or any lawyers that are involved in the process. There are a number of people that are obligated to have your best interest in mind whenever you're going through the large purchase of buying a home. The auto industry has nothing like this. In fact, I would argue that dealerships and car salesmen are almost set up as the exact opposite of a fiduciary, because they don't have a moral or legal obligation to have your best interest in mind, but they are almost directly benefited by stabbing you in the back. The more you pay for a car, the higher interest rate that you pay, the more junk fees that you pay, the more that these dealerships and car salesmen benefit. And this is a major problem. And this ultimately results in different people getting different buying experiences and different prices whenever they go to buy a car. Over the years, there have been dozens of reports of dealerships discriminating against people of color, women, the elderly. In fact, a relatively recent study showed that if you are a woman at a dealership, you will pay more for that same car than a man. If you're a person of color, you will pay even more, and if you're an elderly individual, you will pay the most. And well, I don't think I need to expand on why this is incredibly problematic. Now, when it comes to dealerships, there are really two major organizations that are at play: the FTC and the franchise industry. Now, I don't talk about this a lot on my channel, but I've actually been working in the franchise industry for about 10 years. I currently work part-time at a franchise consulting firm, so franchising is one of the few industries that I would actually be considered an expert in. And let me tell you from experience, the franchise industry is a powerful one. When it comes to why dealerships exist, more specifically large franchise dealerships, it's because of the franchise industry as a whole, and the industry is paying a lot of money and making a lot of effort to make sure that dealerships stay intact. A long time ago, it became a law that automakers could not sell direct to consumer, and as a result, they had to sell their vehicles through franchise dealerships. The thought process behind this at the time was that selling through dealerships would not only offer customers a better buying experience, it would create more competition within the industry, and it would also create more jobs throughout the entire country. But like anything, over the last 100 or so years, dealerships have morphed away from this original objective, and they morphed away from what they started as. And now dealerships have become this inefficient, hated, and toxic process.
I want to see the manager.
You want to see the manager?
Yeah.
Yeah? I'll show you the manager. Here's the manager. Right here. Here's the manager.
But despite the fact that dealerships are arguably no longer needed, they continue to stick around. And that's because the franchise industry has been spending millions of dollars lobbying against any proposals that could potentially put franchise dealerships in harm's way. The franchise industry wants to see franchise dealerships, so they've been spending an absolute ton of money creating hurdles and preventing the automotive industry from moving into that direct-to-consumer model, or oftentimes referred to the Tesla model. And the direct-to-consumer model is a major major threat to franchise dealerships because it cuts out the middleman entirely. But the franchise industry isn't the only factor at play. So is the Federal Trade Commission, or the FTC, which is the government body that oversees the franchise industry as well as dealerships and the transaction of buying and selling cars. These franchise dealerships are protected and represented by the umbrella of the FTC, and they're protected under franchise compliance laws. And automakers, the franchisors in this situation, have to comply with franchise compliance laws. And again, I can tell you firsthand that the FTC and franchise compliance laws are two things that you do not want to mess with either. The FTC basically sets all the rules regarding franchising here in the United States. They set the rules as to what makes a franchise and how somebody can become a franchisor. They set the rules as to how you can properly sell franchises and what information you can and cannot disclose. And they also dictate what you have to do moving forward in order to maintain your status as a franchisor as well. And in this situation with automakers and dealerships, the dealerships are the franchisees while the automakers are the franchisors. And in the context of the auto industry, the FTC is in a bit of a tricky spot because not only do they regulate the franchise industry, and thus they're regulating automakers and dealerships, but they also handle us as consumers to an extent as well, because the FTC also has their hands in the process of buying and selling cars. The FTC and the franchise industry are two main reasons as to why automakers can't simply go in and make any change that they want to in regards to the automotive industry. It's why automakers are having to jump through hoops and hurdles in order to offer a direct-to-consumer model, and why even whenever they do offer it, they're not going to be offering it across all of their makes and models. It's why, despite the fact that it seems like a no-brainer to get rid of junk fees and shady dealer add-ons, a ban hasn't officially been made yet, though the FTC is looking into it. It's also why, despite the fact that we live in 2023, the automotive industry and the car buying process seems to be stuck in the 20th century. Because to an extent, the government controls the automotive industry. And as we all know, the government doesn't exactly embrace change. And whenever they do embrace it, that change doesn't get executed on quickly. Now, I would be remiss to at least not briefly talk about the power that the dealerships hold themselves. The FTC and the franchise industry aside, dealerships are a really important tool to automakers. And as of today, they make automakers a lot of money. They're an important part of the car buying process. And whether automakers like it or not, dealerships have a lot of leverage over them. So automakers are to an extent forced to continue to make dealerships happy. And while this dynamic is shifting slowly but surely, it certainly isn't shifting fast enough to put the power into the hands of the automakers alone. And right now, automakers and dealerships really have to work together. So as of today, there are three main components as to why dealerships are so powerful. Number one is the franchise industry. Number two is the FTC. And number three is the dealerships themselves. So this explains why, despite the fact that dealerships are hated, they continue to stick around. But now what I'd like to pivot the discussion to is the benefit that dealerships have to us, the average consumer. But I'm forewarning you, this benefit is relatively small. Dealerships have strayed away from their original objective, which was to simply provide a better customer experience, create jobs, and offer more competition. And while I guess technically dealerships do achieve two of these three goals, they have strayed far, far away from creating a better customer experience. But the truth is, not all of this is the fault of the dealership, because let's face it, automakers are just as bad. A recent example of this is subscription services within cars. There are more and more automakers that are experimenting with the idea of offering vehicles or vehicle features on a subscription basis. BMW recently met extreme backlash because of the rollout of offering things like heated seats on a subscription service. Tesla's been offering subscription services for a while now, and some automakers are even offering as basic features as remote key start on a monthly fee. And this is a trend that I absolutely hate. But dealerships are pushing back on this, with some lobbyist groups proposing an outright ban on subscription services, while others are proposing a revenue share between dealerships and automakers. While the motive behind dealerships pushing back on subscription services is no doubt driven by wanting to create more revenue streams for the dealerships, we have to acknowledge the fact that dealerships do offer a bit of a checks and balances system for automakers. And regardless of the motive behind this pushback, we have to acknowledge that this is a good thing. And if we were to get rid of dealerships altogether and this checks and balances was to go away, there could definitely be some negative consequences that come along with that. Now, truthfully, I think both dealerships and automakers suck. I mean, let's be real, neither really care about their customers. Both have been making moves to increase profit at the expense of the product as well as the customer experience, and they're both their own worst enemy. But I don't see any major changes coming to the dealership model or the automotive industry as a whole until the federal government steps in to regulate this industry, similar to what they did with the home mortgage industry years ago. The auto industry, specifically the process of buying a car, is sort of like the wild, wild west. The dealerships and the auto lenders can sort of do whatever they want. Want to buy a $100,000 truck with no money down? No problem. You're 18 years old with a part-time job and you want to buy a $40,000 Mustang? Oh, you can't afford the $1,000 car payment? No problem. Let's lower that payment by stretching that term to 96 months. Oh, you're a 60-year-old grandma that knows nothing about cars? Let me tell you as to why you should buy a brand new 2023 $60,000 model rather than that 2019 pre-owned $25,000 one that you came in to look at. And full disclosure, that third scenario was a real life one that happened to my aunt. These type of predatory dealership transactions happen every single day. And while we can have the discussion of direct-to-consumer to dealership models all day long, I don't really think that anything will change until the government forces things to change. And I don't really think that the government will force things to change until really hits the fan. And well, in the meantime, automakers will continue to make the slow and steady shift to the direct-to-consumer model in the form of electric vehicles. Dealerships will continue to push back on this, and in the meantime, there will be really no added benefit to the customer. Because at the end of the day, regardless of what happens to dealerships, customers are still paying more and more for an average car, they're getting sucked into these stupid subscription models, and they're stuck paying higher and higher dealership fees. And all the while, the power of the buyer will continue to go down. And until regulation forces change, I don't really think that the automotive industry will experience much change at all. At least not change that will benefit the average buyer. The truth is, the entire auto industry has transformed into an industry of greed. And I can talk all day about how problematic junk fees, dealer add-ons, and bait and switch sales tactics are for the dealerships. But let's not lie to ourselves, because automakers aren't any better. Their greed is just presented differently. Because while dealerships have been slapping customers with BS fees, automakers have been in the background taking away nearly every affordable model offered on the road today, offering subscription services and cutting out dealerships under the guise of improving the buyer experience. But let's be real, it all comes down to profit. Until the government forces change within the automotive industry, change will never really happen, at least not systematically, because change is counterproductive to what the automaker and the dealership want to achieve, which is more and more profit. Dealerships and the automotive industry as a whole are broken, and it's going to take a lot to fix it. But like always, you guys, I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, comments, if you have anything to add, I would love to hear it, so make sure to leave a comment down below. And while you guys are at it, make sure to hit the like button, hit that subscribe button, and hit the notification bell, and I will see you guys in the next video.